Would you guys like to hear all about this woman who had to let her therapist go? And her therapist took it really quite badly. Not only that, but people are suspecting in the comment sections that actually her therapist was like in love with her, and that's the reason why she's being all weird. This whole situation is eerily reminiscent of how Kendra used to describe her therapist, although I think her therapist was actually her psychiatrist. If you're actually wondering what has happened to Kendra, she is still going on TikTok. Yes, she is. We haven't spoken about her in quite a while. And it's not just the clients either. Okay. I have come across some people who are therapists who really should not be therapists.
These people do not have mental health issues. These are demonic beings that have access to their body, to their mind, to their soul.
So we have actually got a couple of key players to talk about. And the content creator goes under the name Mish Huffman, but I'm just going to call her Mish throughout this, okay? I don't know if that's her first name. I don't know if it's a nickname. Who really knows with some of these TikTok handles? Who has been going to therapy with her therapist, right? Same woman for about 4 years. Initially, she was going once a week. So that's 4 times a month.
My therapist works for herself, so she doesn't have like a practice or she doesn't have a team. It's just her. She's in her 60s. I'm would almost guess like mid 60s. So not someone that's brand new. I would say she's, in my opinion, like well seasoned. This is in Texas.
Right, she was going through some real crap, and a lot of it was revolving around the fact that her dad is in prison now. Her dad went into prison for like reasonings that no one could quite expect. It was like night and day. It was like completely unsuspected, yeah. He'd been living like a secret life, yeah. That turned her world upside down. She had been receiving therapy from this woman. She said that she was well seasoned. And she details the fact that just the other day, her therapist said to her that we need to talk. So Mish basically goes, all right, okay, elaborate. What do you want to talk to me about? And the therapist essentially says that she feels devalued as a therapist and that Mish is like withholding information, like being secretive and not being 100% honest with her.
She let me know today that we needed to talk and told me that for the last 8 months, she has felt that I have, that she feels devalued and that there's been an avoidance of vulnerability. I'm just reading my notes. Defensiveness, and I haven't been honest with her. And I immediately was like, what? My first thought was like, did someone that doesn't like me call her and say like, Michelle's lying? That's literally what I thought. I couldn't believe it. I literally credit this woman to like all the growth that I've had over the past 4 years. So I immediately felt like I was like in trouble and that I wasn't like doing therapy right. I initially didn't say anything because I was in shock. And then I asked her like for examples. And
this kind of behavior is just so unbelievably bizarre. When Mish is questioning the therapist on, hey, yeah, could you please elaborate on what have I been, why have I left you feeling devalued? And also, what gives you the impression that I'm hiding stuff from you? And a therapist basically just gives off these examples, whenever it was, like a year or so ago, Mish really needed to end it with her boyfriend at the time, but like she just couldn't and she couldn't bring herself around for it. And she recalls a time where she had just gotten off the phone of a therapy session and her therapist like texted her or something, which I think this is mad unprofessional, but basically contacted her to say, I don't think you should be with your partner anymore.
essentially that she thought that like my ex wasn't the one for me and that she wanted to let me know that. And so like I just listened. I don't remember exactly how I felt in that moment, but I remember thinking like, yeah, I know, but like easier said than done, right? Feeling like that's a decision I need to make. So she brought that up and she was like, what did you think about that? And I was like, I mean, I heard you and I appreciated you telling me, but like I maybe wasn't ready to do that for myself. Like I knew I needed to do it, but I hadn't done it yet. which made me think that she felt like I wasn't listening to her. And then she said when we finally did break up, I had said, like, you know, like, I'm seeing everything for what it is. I feel like I'm in a better spot. I can see the patterns and all these things. And so, like, I finally feel like, you know, I was ready to break up with him. And I remember, like, when we broke up and I told her. And so, like, I'm just like, okay, and she was like, and that was just something you did all on your own, right?
Turned around and said, well, do you remember that time where I told you that actually your boyfriend wasn't good enough for you, and then you then broke up with him, and then you then told me in a session just how much better you feel about it? Where was my credit? Are you a therapist, or are you I'm so confused. And the thing is, right, I would even be taken aback if a friend of mine had said that. If a friend of mine had said, I feel devalued because you didn't give me any credit pointing out what an absolute arse your boyfriend is. Like, I would feel, whoa, like, I'd feel smothered. I wouldn't think that that's like a normal response.
And I was like, well, technically, yeah. But, like, I'm not discrediting that. Like, you haven't helped me get there. But I'm like, isn't that the point of therapy? Like, you gotta come to these realizations, and sometimes it takes people longer than others. It made me feel like I was doing therapy wrong.
And Misha was just like, well, you know, I had to figure it out for myself. And obviously, yeah, you know, you did kind of help me. I don't know. The amount of mental gymnastics you have to go through to justify your reasonings for saying that you feel devalued is just crazy. Another example that she gave, right? The therapist said to her, okay, well, I think that you're not telling me everything because at the end of our sessions, you then say, oh, by the way, I also want to talk about this, when you only have like 5 minutes left to go because you know you're on like a time slot.
And she proceeded to tell me that, like, I wasn't telling the truth. And so I'm like, what does that mean? And that I didn't bring stuff up until like 5 minutes left in the session that should have been brought up at the beginning because they mattered. Like, I never told her that I was contemplating moving out of my dad's house when I moved out, and then I suddenly found a place. I didn't tell her that I was almost going to move in with my boyfriend until I had said, like, I was thinking about it, but I didn't, and that I consume caffeine drinks and take gummies sometimes, that these were all important things, and I was just holding this information from her, which I don't doubt that they're not important, but I just explained to her that when we would hop on a call, and whatever I was dealing with and going through, which changed day to day because that last year, once my dad went away to prison, like, it was my rock bottom and the hardest thing I had ever done in my life.
Which is just so stupid. Also, it is super, super, super normal to, if your therapist, you know, especially if you're not quite picking up as you left off from your last session, if it's been like a whole week since, you're going to have like new things to talk about. Because what happens if like something's triggered you that week? Or what happens if something good has happened that week and you just want to talk about it? Or what happens if you're having a really bad day and that's the only thing on your mind? Things change. And because your sessions are only so long, a lot of the time they're only an hour, 45 minutes long, you get stuck on talking about one singular thing for like a majority of the session. And then at the very end, once you've both discussed it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. That is so normal.
She explained to me that, like, she understood that the last year was rough, but that I was withholding information. And I just, again, explained to her that when I jumped on the call, I would literally just tell her what I felt in my heart at the time. But normally it would literally take the hour or like 45 minutes. And I was like, so maybe it wasn't that I was bringing these things up at the very end. It's just like there was so much to discuss. So yeah, I'd bring it up, but I knew like the session was ending. And she was like, well, then you book another session, Michelle. And I was like, I understand that.
Like, so normal. And the fact that the woman thinks as using that as like oh, gotcha, you're being secretive is outrageous. And not only that, but Misha has tried to like cut down appointments. So I think she was only receiving once every fortnight or something a bit like that. She'd like drastically cut down her appointments because it's very expensive. And she felt like she was in a better place, okay? But the therapist takes this personally. Like, she takes this as a jab.
And then was saying that, like, I went from 4 sessions going once a week to 2, and I did that because I couldn't afford it. And I told her that, and I said, yeah, I moved down my sessions because I couldn't afford to come weekly anymore, and I told you that. And then she was like, but I offered you a discount. And I was like, I understand, but discount or not, I'm still spending extra money I didn't have if I would have done the extra sessions.
And what Misha's saying is, like, completely correct. If Misha can't afford it, then Misha can't afford it. There's no if and buts, who, whatever. I think that there are many different things that are going on with this. One of which I think that the therapist could be, I'm not saying it is because I don't know these people personally. One of which she's developed this like weird like attachment because of course she's been a consistent client for like 4 years. Maybe she has grown. I'm not saying like feelings, although that is, look, I'll flag it up here. That is literally what like people are saying and people are agreeing with, and it has been drawn to Misha's attention. But if not like catching feelings, could just be developed an unhealthy going beyond the professional boundary line of what they're supposed to be doing. So not necessarily in a romantic way, but just you know what, getting a bit too attached. Another thing is that like this woman, because she is not signed to like a practice or anything, maybe she like self-advertises, maybe she can't find any other clients, maybe she just really needs Misha to not leave. But the thing is that the therapist had said we need to talk before Misha break up with her, which is bringing in our second video. Yeah, and the comments, I'm going to try and read a lot of them from a therapist perspective. Leslie Ann says, as a therapist, as soon as she mentioned being devalued, it was a wrap for me. It's not supposed to be about the therapist in that way in a therapeutic space. That's what I would have thought. Therapist here, this is insane behaviour. It is not your job to make your therapist feel anything. This is incredibly unethical on so many levels. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Someone said, I'm a therapist. You 100% are valid for feeling betrayed. Also, I'm not sure it's ethical for her to take payment before a session, especially one like this. I'm so sorry, girl. Wow. Yes, obviously I had to like pay for the hour-long appointment. And apparently it was just super uncomfortable.
I felt like I wanted to have a conversation with her to let her know that I wanted to either move to 1 session a month or take a break from therapy. But I didn't know what that looked like because, mind you, I've been with this therapist for 4 years. And for like the first 2 years, I was going 4 times a month, but I needed it and I wanted it and I was like committed to doing it. That was one thing I never sacrificed, was my therapy. I wanted it. I wanted to know why I was the way I was. I wanted to go there. I wanted to do all the things. And I didn't know how I was going to have this conversation with her. And I remember like asking my girlfriend, I was like, do I just tell her like I want a break? Because I didn't know how to bring that up because I would feel guilty, and it wasn't coming from a place of I don't think you're helping me anymore. It was just like I just want to scale back because like I'm putting all these things that we have learned into practice.
Misha had actually gone and spoken to her girlfriend and said, I feel really guilty, which is a horrible thing because her therapist helped her overcome a lot of different feelings and emotions. Her therapist is actually opening up these wounds again that they were trying so hard to heal. And she says, yeah, I think I either need to drop to 1 session a month or I'm going to take a break from therapy. And the therapist was like, I don't know how to move forward from this.
And mind you, you got to think of like the position I'm in and she's in. And I can see this now as like, I look to her as like an authoritative, like guidance, mentor, someone I respect. So like the dynamic already seems, I'm not going to say unfair, but like that's how I look at her because she's my therapist. And she's been saying I've been defensive. So I don't want to then say, I'm afraid that anything I say up until that point or after that I'm going to sound defensive. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So, I mean, I just told her, I was like, this hurts my feelings. And like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. Can you give me examples? And I talked about some of the examples, but she was just like, I said, I hate that you waited 8 months and you didn't say something sooner. And she's like, well, these are things that like I've noticed and patterns, and I too have been processing this. But yeah, is wild. So again, ironically, I was on the call to tell her that I wanted to like, hey, I'm doing so great. I'd like to like pull back on my sessions and like, or if anything, just take a break, and maybe we could do like on a as need basis, because I felt like we've had a pretty good relationship. And then basically by the end of it, she was just like, moving forward, like I'm charging this much if we work together. Oh, and she had also told me like at the beginning when she was telling me like we need to talk and she told me all this stuff, she said she was like, I'm not sure how I can move forward from this. And I was like, oh. And I mean, immediately I already was like, I'm gonna have to find a new therapist or figure something out because I already feel uncomfortable.
I'm telling you, she feels personally slighted. Either feelings were developed, whether that be in like an over familiar sense or like a love interest way. I'm more inclined to believe it was like, I don't know, just like got too attached to Mish and her life and things. But apparently like the therapist didn't even say goodbye. Apparently Mish was like, okay, well then we're going to have to end things then. And the therapist was like, fine.
We parted ways, and she's like, I'll discharge your papers, whatever that means. And then we stared at each other for another 2 minutes until finally it was like, all right. I was like, I hope you have a great week. And she just like looked at me and then like hit like leave.
What the hell? Anyway, I'm glad that she is rid of her therapist, but maybe her therapist was going through something, because it's weird that in that whole 4 years it never got that bad. Maybe there were definitely hints along the way the therapist was getting too attached or whatever. Yeah, weird. This is not the only time that I've seen proof of the fact that there are too many people that should not be delivering therapy to people.
The Lord revealed to me that he needs more of his believers in area of deliverance, not in the area of diagnosing. These people do not have mental health issues. These are demonic beings that have access to their body, to their mind, to their soul.
On the app. So there was this woman, right, I'll put her up here. And Jordan was actually a licensed therapist. She came and she said that she's actually removed her license, revoked her license, because she now believes that therapy is actually practicing witchcraft, or therapy is inviting demons in.
So as of today, I have done something that I never thought I would do. I inactivated my license and I quit my job as a therapist.
And the thing is, I think anyone who starts saying this kind of stuff, especially as the fact they've literally practiced so long, could very well need therapy of her own. I am most shocked that a lot of people agree. Like, if you go and have a little look at her videos, there's a video that she just put up a few hours ago where she's saying that like she's basically saying like homosexuality is a sin.
Y'all, I have really been wrestling with making this video. I have been wrestling with God probably for the past week now, and even to the point where I ended up having to repent for being disobedient because he told me to make this video, and I really just was trying to negotiate with him and not want to talk about it and not want to touch on it, but whatever, right? I'm gonna just do it because it's not about how I feel, it's about what God wants me to do. He has really been urging me to talk about how he delivered me from homosexuality, and not just my testimony, but also just facing the demon behind it itself. I ended up doing a deliverance on this young lady, and she was being afflicted with homosexuality. And when I tell y'all the backlash I got spiritually after doing not only her deliverance but her baptism.
I'm giving this as an example because she is very much the type of Christian, I like to think, that believes that like the devil is everywhere, and she will basically see like witchcraft and devilry and all of that in things which A lot of us don't, okay? And like I say, a shocking number of people agree.
Thinking about my life, and the Lord has had my life on repeat, and I thought that I needed to go to therapy. I thought that I needed the medication. I thought that I needed this and I needed that. And because I was apart from the Lord for so many years of my life, and even when I first came into this field, I still was not saved. I just thought, you need somebody to talk to. You need somebody to help you understand what's going on, and you need somebody to make you feel comfortable, and this needs to be a safe space. There are no safe space for demons. And what we don't understand is that when you are studying to become a therapist, they introduce you to this book that's called the DSM-5. The DSM-5 is a book, okay? It is a book of demonic association. Let's just call it what it is. I'm talking to Christian blood-bought believers, those who believe in Jesus Christ, all right? And so when people come in and they talk to you and they say, oh, I've been struggling with this, I've been struggling with that, you go to this book, you look up the symptoms of what they tell you, and then you assign them a diagnosis. As soon as you assign them a diagnosis, that gives the demonic continued legal access to their life, because that's a word curse.
Now, she is referencing the DSM-5 manual, which is a diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders. 5th edition is the standard classification manual published by the American Psychiatric Association, used by clinicians and researchers to diagnose, categorize, and treat mental disorders. It provides standardized criteria, symptom lists, and diagnostic codes for mental health conditions, with the updated 2022 text revision being the current standard. She is saying the therapists are then instructed to go look in this book. The minute that they can then see a mental illness and then diagnose it to a patient is the moment that you're then affirming that onto somebody, which then gives the devil confirmation to come out, affirmation, I don't know. This is what she's trying to say, which will then highlight the devil's existence in that person through mentioning the disease. Obviously, me personally, this is a whole load of bullcrap. A whole load of bullcrap. If there's anyone in here who seems to think that what she's saying is sense, then we're not going to get along. I think it is highly dangerous for a multitude of different reasonings. I can think of many ones, like schizophrenia, for instance. Things which cause people to very much start believing in things that are not there, start hallucinating, start creating scenarios, okay, and start living in them. They're real extreme serious disorders. And schizophrenia is literally classified as a brain disorder, okay? It's not because of witchcraft, it's not because of the devil is out here and he's doing this and that. If a small child sees someone that is having an episode, whether it's schizophrenia or another brain related disorder, it can be shocking and it can be a scary thing, at least for the person who's actually going through it. You then have to teach and remind people that actually this is something that they cannot help. This is something that unfortunately they have to go through. And by turning it into something it's not, into this evil demonic thing to be scared, to be scared of and to create hype around, is really detrimental for people who actually suffer from these diseases. I mean, yeah, you could also argue that actually people who believe that all mental health problems is actually because of the devil do genuinely need psychiatric help themselves. Yes, you can argue that, but that still isn't changing the fact that people believe it and are putting it out into the world. And I think that's really, really, really harmful, because I just remember when I was younger, watching loads of films and stuff, the people being shown very rare, extreme versions of disorders, and it's a way of scaring you, and I don't like that. And I think that's really, I don't like that. I don't like it at all. I don't like it when it's depicted like that. Because there needs to be more education on it. And there's this woman who's literally just coming out and she's like, yeah, actually, yeah, I believe that all mental health problems is actually the work of the devil, and that this little book is actually literally a spell book. It's like witchcraft. A lot of people are rightly saying, I'm glad that you gave up your license, but there are a lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, who believe what she's saying. Someone said, I honestly agree. I went to a Christian therapist for years and she did help me, but it wasn't until she didn't took me through deliverance that I felt true freedom. And before she was a therapist, she was a deliverance minister. It is deliverance, but we also need discipleship to continue to walk in freedom. Someone else said, This, our mind, is a part of our soul. Satan wants it as territory, and there will be physical manifestations of the devil at work in your life. Deliverance and inner healing is real with God. Love your obedience in this. Someone else said, I was so led to therapy and God would not allow me to get licensed or certified in anything, and I never understood. So I just studied it all for years. Now I do Christian coaching because I don't have to follow any rules. I can go straight into deliverance if I need to. Someone else said, wow, you just inspired me not to renew my nursing RN license. I believe it has been a stronghold in my life. God called me out of healthcare and it's time to trust God and walk by faith and inactivate my license as well. Our faith in Jesus Christ must be backed with action. God bless you, sister in Christ. You are truly being used by God Mighty. May He continue to use you for His glory and strengthen you. I mean, yeah, it's all completely nuts and it all feels extremely outdated. Like, we have come such a long way. Like, fair enough, we're talking like before there was advancements in science, before anyone like had any idea what was going on. I mean, literally, didn't they name like a woman being hysterical was actually like a disorder that a woman could get like chucked away in a mental health hospital for, which by the way they were not very nice. You used to get locked away for varying different reasonings, and the weird thing is that in a lot of those times when they didn't understand what was going on with people's mental health, they genuinely used to believe, a lot of them used to believe that actually it was the work of the devil, but we're over that. Like, we're over it. Anyway, my whole entire point is that I don't know what is going on with therapist TikTok, but I just what a time it has been to either be a client or to be a therapist. But I'm really happy to see that there are people who are standing up and they're saying that, at least in this case, this creator is in the wrong. And then there have been people that have been commenting in on Misha's videos saying, like, your therapist was just not professional whatsoever. Because therapy is serious, and people go to therapy for a variety of different reasonings, and it needs to be somewhere that is safe and that you trust the therapist. And when that is not met, it can do more harm than good. Right, it really can. But that is pretty much all I had to say, actually. Yeah. So after this video, you are gonna see one more video, but it has been pre-recorded because I will not be back until like the Saturday, which is, I don't know, like the day before Easter. But I hope you guys have a great Easter, because over here it is actually the Easter break, hence the reason why I'm like, see ya, I'm going. But hopefully the weather sticks out for everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing Easter, such an amazing time, and I hope the weather is staying strong for you. I hope you guys have a wonderful day as well, wherever you are in this world. Take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and I will catch up with you guys in the next video.